In Season 3 of The Mandalorian, the relationship between Bo-Katan and Din Djarin was hinted at various times, but ultimately was not confirmed. And with Din Djarin and Bo-Katan going their separate ways at the end of the season, you might be asking yourself how a romantic relationship between them could happen. Well, in today's video, I'm going to be going over a scenario where Bo-Katan and Din Djarin get together in The Mandalorian Season 4. BoDin for the win? This is the way. So, I anticipate Mandalorian Season 4 to start off following Din Djarin and Grogu, I guess, and they'll be completing bounties for the New Republic and working primarily under Captain Karsa Teva. And this dynamic will be similar to that of Season 1, and this has already been hinted at by, Brendan Wayne and other actors from the show that were kind of returning to that kind of style, at least for the beginning. And we can see that with how the show ends and, where Mando and Grogu are at, kind of off on their own. Bo-Katan will be rebuilding Mandalore, and I think that will also play a key part, but maybe not the primary focus. Now, let's hop right in where I think the story will start. So, Din and Grogu are on a bounty track, right? Because Carson has informed them that there's been a group of rogue stormtroopers who deserted their superior offers and have basically been wreaking havoc. And the troopers have settled on Arval 7, and they're basically like tormenting and plundering the Ugnaughts that are there, forcing them to build things for them and just whatever else, and there's really not much opposition there. So there was a complaint, and Carson Teva got this word, and he figured Mando and Grogu would be the best for this job simply because of their expertise on ground combat and, dealing with a group of troopers. And it wasn't enough troopers and them not being directly linked to the Empire for that to warrant a New Republic intervention. So Din and Grogu show up on Arval 7 and they track down these stormtroopers. Grogu uses the Force to lift all four of them in the air at once and lift their blaster away from them, leaving it up to Din, who simultaneously blasts them all with his blaster in a quick motion, just showing that increased chemistry between Grogu and Din. And from there, after completing their bounty, they head back to the Republic base of Aldefi and meet back up with Captain Carson and get their credits they get for completing the bounty. Carson informs them that there's really not much else for them to work on at the moment and that he'll contact Din Djarin when there is some kind of trouble or some kind of bounty that they can work on. So Grogu and Din Djarin head back to Navarro, back to their house, and kind of relax there for a few days. They eat some good food, have some good drinks, just kind of relaxing a bit. That is until one day, Din's holo projector at his home starts beeping, informing him of an incoming call, but it's not from Captain Carson. Meanwhile, the Shadow Council has been plotting. Since learning of the destruction of Moff Gideon and his forces, they've realized the Mandalorian threat was much larger than they anticipated, and something had to be done. So, it was decided that Shadow Council leader Yasan Izard be tasked with taking back Mandalore and the base and to get the Beskar mines back and operational. She would have to take back the base in a fashion not damage the mines. General Hux and other leaders decided that Yasan would need much of the current Imperial resources to make sure the Mandalorian threat was snuffed out once and for all. So she was given to command 50 TIE fighters, a dozen bombers, 2 Imperial light cruisers, and 1 Imperial Star Destroyer, all with the purpose of taking back Mandalore and getting the Beskar mines back and operational to fill in the gap in the Outer Rim that's been missing with Gideon's absence and to continue work on the Dark Trooper program. The fleet conglomerates deep in the Outer Rim and makes its way towards Kalevala, where Yasan plans to take a temporary base there to plan their invasion of Mandalore. From here, we get cut to Bo-Katan and a few other Mandalorians, and they're actually on Kalevala right now, as there's been enough time now for things to sort of get settled and get working on Mandalore that she has had time to come to Kalevala and her castle of origin, her family castle that's been destroyed, to look through the rubble and to find remnants and heirlooms left behind to bring back with her to Mandalore. Out of nowhere, one of the Mandalorians next to her gets shot at. Somehow, there was a stormtrooper. Here, the Mandalorian dropped dead, and Bo-Katan and a couple other Mandalorians started to break out in a run. With blaster fire railing behind them, another one of the Mandalorians drop, she's making a break for her ship. She's maybe 30 meters away when the last of her companions also drops, but she makes it onto the ship, and her ship is getting bombarded with laser fire now from multiple stormtroopers, but she's able to get into the air, and as she's about to hit light speed, she sees over the corner of the mountain boarding parties of Imperials, Imperial light cruisers, and an Imperial Star Destroyer. And she does a quick jump to get out of there into space to bolt back to Mandalore. And she sends a call to the only person she knows that could maybe help them out. And that, of course, is Din Djarin. So Din now picks up the holoprojector, and it is none other than Bo-Katan asking for help, as there is a large Imperial fleet camped outside of Mandalore on Kalevala, and it could only mean one thing: invasion. So Bo-Katan is basically asking for Din's help to notify the New Republic, and because she knows that they have a good connection, he has a good connection with Captain Carson, and that's exactly what Din Djarin plans to do. Not wanting to see Bo-Katan or any of the other Mandalorians fall, Din Djarin makes his way back to the base of Eldefi in a rush and sprints to Captain Carson. In the meantime, Bo-Katan has landed on Mandalore and gathered Axe Wolves, the Armorer, and the rest of the Mandalorians at the Great Forge to have an emergency meeting. Bo-Katan explains that the Imperials are coming for revenge for Moff Gideon and to take Mandalore, and that they need to ready their defenses. Axe Wolves volunteers to lead what remains of the Mandalorian fleet and the various shuttles, the Comric-class fighter transports, and other fighters that they had. And they had acquired a couple smaller transports in the meantime, though it was a fraction of the strength the Imperials had. Bo-Katan expected a two-pronged attack both in the air and an invasion party, so Bo-Katan decided she would lead the ground forces against the Imperials landing, and Axe Wolves would lead that of the dogfight. And not too long after, the Imperial fleet arrived in Mandalorian space, but Axe Wolves and the rest of the Mandalorian fleet was there to intercept. Yasan Izzard ordered all ties to be unleashed on them, and along with that ordered the Imperial shuttles to be sent down to Mandalore to take on the ground forces. Bo-Katan and the Mandalorians on the surface were doing a good job of deterring the landing stormtroopers and seemed to be holding them at bay, though I couldn't say the same thing for Axe Wolves and the rest of the ships in the air and in the dogfight, as they were taking numerous losses in the air, with many ships being destroyed and Mandalorians killed. Yasan Izzard wasn't entirely satisfied with how the battle was going, as she needed this to be swift and clean, so she ordered an Imperial light cruiser to land at the surface so that a garrison of stormtroopers could go and aid in on the ground attack to give them the advantage all around. Din Djarin on the Eldefi base has been begging Carson to take action against the Imperials, and Carson Teva, being the proud rebellion at heart that he was, immediately contacted Coruscant and the New Republic head officials to let them know of this reports of this Imperial Star Destroyer in the Outer Rim, but the officer was taking no heed of this, as they could not go off of just rumor and word of mouth, but needed factual evidence. Unlike last time, Carson was annoyed by this lack of action of the New Republic and decided to take matters in his own hand, and commanded those at Eldefi base to join him and defy orders to make sure to stand up for the Mandalorians and take on the Imperials. There were multiple squadrons of X-Wings and Y-Bombers, and everyone at the base decided to come and help out, and they made the jump to light speed, with Din Djarin's N1 leading the way, with Carson close behind, followed by numerous X-Wings and Y-Bombers. And they emerged, and the fighting erupted between them. By the time they had arrived, half of the Mandalorian ships have been destroyed, and they were worse for wear. But Yasan Izzard was not expecting New Republic action at all, let alone this fast of a turnaround of support from them, as she was surprised now to see the numerous X-Wings and Y-Bombers heading their way. The Y-Bombers made a quick run on the remaining light cruiser that had stuck by with the rest of the Imperial fleet, doing heavy damage to this, and the ship actually exploded, as they were not expecting this, though the battle was not won, as there was many TIE fighters still fighting, so the dogfight continued between the X-Wings and the rest of the TIE fighters. Din sends a transmission to check on Bo-Katan, who is in mid-fight on the surface, and she's asking for support. So Din, being the only ground support that they could have, as there were no transports or troops, only X-Wings and Y-Bombers with them, heads down to the surface. He placed some well-placed shots from his N1 on the hangar bay of where the Imperial troops were coming out of the landed light cruiser. He doesn't shoot into the midst of battle, not wanting to cause any crossfire casualty, and he lands his N1 and joins the fight with Grogu at his side. They come in from behind to help do a pincer move on the remaining Imperials on the ground, and he unleashes all of his whistling birds to help even the odds. With many Mandalorians already on the floor, the battle was starting to actually turn in the Mandalorians' favor at this point, thanks to the surprise attack from Din Djarin and Grogu's force abilities from the behind. Meanwhile, in the air, it was now looking in the favor of the allies of the New Republic and Mandalorian forces, as was shifting quickly in their favor with the experienced X-Wings and Captain Carson's commands, as numerous ties had now been destroyed and minimal losses on the New Republic side. Axe-Wolves and Carson now pressed their attack on the main Star Destroyer, which now was taking heavy damage of its own. Yasan Isard, realizing that utter defeat was near, not wanting to lose something as valuable as his Star Destroyer, moved out of combat and the ship burning, mustered back to her ship, and made the jump to lightspeed with the remaining forces and was gone. The Imperials were defeated, but at a heavy cost, numerous casualties. The New Republic and Mandalorian new allies rendezvoused on the surface of Mandalore and made their plans. Captain Carson decided to bring back the proof that he now had of the Imperial incursions here, to bring greater attention to the activity of Imperials in the Outer Rim, so those on Coruscant will actually take action moving forward, and better patrol the area and take the Imperials more seriously, as this was a Star Destroyer was no small matter to be dealt with. Bo-Katan decided she needed to get away for the time being from all the death of multiple Mandalorian brothers and sisters she lost in the fights, and gave temporary control of Mandalore in the hands of the Armorer and Axe-Wolves. And Din Djarin offered her to come take a vacation on his home of Navarro and to take it easy for some time. Din and Bo-Katan arrive at his house in Navarro, and Din contacts Grief Karga, asking him to watch over Grogu for the night. Din cooks up a nice meal for Bo-Katan, and then he unveils the nice bottle of alcohol that was given to him by Grief, who told him to save it for a special occasion and to only bring it out when the crowd around him was smaller. And this seemed like the perfect time for a special someone for a special time, and he and Bo-Katan enjoy a nice meal, good drinks, and a quiet evening together. They finish up their meals, and Din invites Bo-Katan to go with him outside to the porch, as it's getting to be evening, and to watch the sunset together. It's nice weather outside, the scenery is beautiful. The sun is now beginning to set in the distance. The rich colors of deep oranges, reds, and pinks all around, creating just a beautiful background. And the two of them are taking in the moments when they turn to each other. Bo-Katan reaches for Din's helmet and starts to take it off, when Din puts his hands over her hands and stops her from doing so. "No, let me do it myself." So Din Djarin takes off his helmet on his own, and they look each other in the eyes for the first time ever, just taking in the moment around them. And the build-up from 3 Mandalorian seasons leads to this, as they lean into each other in the beautiful background. With the sun almost fully setted now, they share a kiss. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Before you go, I want to talk about BoDin, kind of why I made this video and just some reasoning behind it. So the reason why I made this video is just to kind of show that just because you're away from someone, you spend some time away from someone, you know, in Bo and Din's case, they went their separate ways at the end of season 3. That doesn't necessarily mean they won't see each other again, or the romance might not happen. Sometimes time away from people can actually be really important and can actually help a relationship in some ways. But I just kind of started writing one day and just kind of wrote this quick story down. It didn't take me too long. Maybe Mandalorian season 4 might happen in some way, shape, or form like this. It might happen later down in the road. But, you know, I just wanted to show that, you know, BoDin can still definitely happen. And yeah, I mean, I spent a while kind of editing this and kind of putting this together. And I had a lot of fun with this, you know, BoDin fanfic. But, you know, I really think this is a potential realistic situation. I did my research with this. And this would probably be, you know, towards the end of the season, or maybe a mid-season finale, if anything, realistically in the show. And there's a lot of other great writers out there that make great fanfics. I see almost every day somebody in our Discord posts a new fanfic they've written about Bo and Din, or just the Mandalorian in general. So anyone can do it. But the point of this video is to say, you know, just because 2 people are separated doesn't mean they have to stay separated, and it actually can be good for people to be away from each other for a while, if that makes sense. But yeah, thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to drop a like. It really helps out the channel. Let me know in the comments what you thought, what you would have done differently, and what you think might happen in Mandalorian Season 4. And yeah, subscribe for more videos. We have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out, everyone. Oh, I almost forgot. BoDin for the win.